Everybody, this is Bradley Benner with Semantic Mastery, and today we have once again our longtime friend and colleague Jeremy Noltzman from Press Advantage, who really needs no introduction. But for those that might be watching this for the first time or watching a webinar with Jeremy for this time, Jeremy is the co-owner and developer of Press Advantage, which is the press release service that I've been using exclusively with Semantic Mastery in my own local SEO agency since 2014 when he launched it. I've been a proud paying member of Jeremy's services ever since 2014. Love it. I always have. Still to this day, use Press Advantage very, very heavily, as Jeremy knows. And every time he wants to do one of these webinars, we don't resist at all because he's always got something new and interesting that he's bringing and adding to the platform and the system and all of that. And so I don't want to steal any of his thunder. This is Jeremy's webinar. I'm just here for moral support. So, Jeremy, how are you, buddy? How you doing, man?
Not bad, not bad. I hope everyone's doing well today.
Right on. Well, like I said, man, I'll just kind of turn it right over to you, and I might chime in occasionally, like I normally do, if that's all right with you.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, let's
Anytime.
just go ahead, jump right into it then.
All
So
right.
take it away, buddy.
Share out here. All right. Is that sharing out all right?
I can see it on my end.
Sounds
somebody
good.
comment in
Someone
chat?
in the
Let me
chat?
make sure y'all can see his screen.
All right.
Looks
Jim
good,
says it's
looks
good.
Right
Jim
on.
would never
All right,
steer us wrong. So
right on. We it.
cool.
Ken says we it. All right, never mind. I'll get out.
All right, so I'm going to apologize in advance if my internet is a little bit unstable. We've had a bunch of storms rolling through here in Missouri over the last week, and my Starlink got taken out, and you can't just go and buy a new cable, and so I'm on my backup internet, and we've got another storm going on right now. So seems to be stable, but I will apologize in advance if I like freeze up or something. Just somebody say something, type it in the chat or whatever. So today we're going to talk about how you can exploit Google's misguided AI strategy and why your focus has to shift away from Google, which is where it has been for all of us for years and years now. So we'll talk a little bit here about the agenda. First is how Google shot themselves in the foot. Talking about how AI is impacting search and how the different language models get their data, what this new modern day search gold rush is and how you can exploit it. And then kind of the million-dollar question for everybody is how do you get your content into the LLMs? And when I say your content, of course, a lot of you guys are agency owners, so I'm talking about your clients' content and certainly your own content as well. But you can kind of extrapolate whether you want to use this stuff for yourself or for your clients or both, kind of whatever. And then of course we'll talk a little bit about Press Advantage, and there's certainly an offer at the end, and not in the agenda, but I did add an extra slide today. I have a brief rant. We'll get to it about halfway through the presentation, kind of after we get through the guts of it before we start talking about Press Advantage. I've got a little rant those of you who have gone to POFU before and seen me kind of go off on a few things, this may or may not be terribly foreign. So stay tuned for that. And then, I said, there's certainly an offer at the end.
That sounds juicy. Now you've piqued my curiosity as well. So I'll be here anxiously awaiting.
Well, I'll just tease it a little bit. I talk to hundreds of agency owners every year, and I have talked to literally thousands of them over the years. And there's a few things that most of them are doing that I hope nobody here on the call is doing, but we're going to talk about it anyways, and why you really need to rethink that. And we'll just kind of leave it at that. So.
Right on.
All right, let's talk about me. As Bradley mentioned, I am one of the owners of Press Advantage. Bobby, my business partner, is the second owner, and we've run it for 12 years now. 2013, 11 years, almost 12 years. Me, I live on a farm in Missouri. I'm a pretty straightforward guy. I am not a big fancy sales guru or anything like that. You're going to see a picture of my view from my back porch. You're not going to see a rented Lambo or a mansion or anything like that. I'm been in the industry for a long time, longer than I want to admit at this point. I've got 5 kids who are, for better or worse, are now grown and gone. I'm a grandfather now, so I have grandkids now, which is kind of crazy for me. All that to say is, I'm not going to sit and make this pitch or pitchy or anything like that. This is not a sales webinar. We're going to focus on a lot of great stuff. I'm going to dive into detail because I want to help people, and sometimes the best way for me to help you is provide you with a great service, but a lot of times it's just about giving you great information. And so that's really what I'm going to focus on here today. I tend to go long and be a little bit long-winded, so I'm going to blow through a lot of this as fast as I can, especially when I get to the stuff that is about me and my company, because I like to talk about the juicy stuff, not so much the company. But I will, of course, touch on that as well, because there's some value for you all at the end. And so what I'd like to do is have this be as interactive as possible, ask questions along the way. I will periodically pause. If Bradley sees something that's important that I need to jump on right away, then we'll do that. We'll kind of take a break for Q&A after the meat of the presentation, probably right after my little rant, and then we'll at the end, of course, we'll talk over any other questions that you may have. So feel free to be interactive. There are a couple places in here where I am going to ask you some questions, so pay attention to that. And then finally, anybody who actively participates is going to get a surprise from me, assuming that Adam sends me emails after the fact. I've got a little email surprise for all of you. So before we really get into the nuts and bolts of it, though, I want to give just a quick introduction to press releases and what they are and what you can use them for, because that's really going to help set the stage. Normally, I talk about this later in the presentation, but as we're going to talk about how to leverage press in general, not just press releases for the today's AI powered search market, I want to just touch on the press releases. And as you can see, there's some weird guy has a press release there up on the page there. But what's a press release? At its core, it's an announcement from a company about something newsworthy. In the context of our service, a press release, we place it on one or more news sites, and by one or more, I mean 500 or more. Most companies use press releases for brand and reputation management, or especially for legal compliance. So, all these folks that send out press releases on PR Newswire, PR Web, those kind of, old school distribution services, they're almost all for compliance purposes. We are here mostly for SEO and brand and reputation. Those are kind of the main things that we're using them for today. Moving forward, we are also going to be adding how we're going to get content into the language models, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. What does Google think about press releases? We've used press releases for 13 years, and Google has always loved them. We used them before Press Advantage even existed, back in the Link Emperor days, for those of you who go back that far. And, we've always seen great results with press releases, which is why we pulled press releases out of Link Emperor and launched Press Advantage to begin with. The press releases touch on multiple parts of the Google algorithm that are important, but especially entity activity, knowledge graph reinforcement. They're always relevant, they're always authoritative, and they come with a lot of trust because we've built our network accordingly. We don't use PBNs and all that sort of thing. How do we know? Well, like I said, we ran Link Emperor for years and built 7.2 billion or 7.3 billion backlinks over the years. A bunch of them were press releases, and we watched what Google did with these, and Google has always loved press releases. And then this spring, they told us, they explicitly said that they do not include press release services in any kind of site reputation abuse or spamminess or anything like that. So they are considered good, solid, syndicated content. Wire services, press releases, news outlets, all of that is high quality content in Google's eyes. So we want to take advantage of that as often as we can. Just the quick benefits that you get from press releases. Obviously, backlinks is the first one that everybody thinks about. 1,500 backlinks or so per press release. They're high value, they're relevant, they're timely and fresh, and then they're sticky. We can go back 13 years to when we very first started sending out press releases and find those links on the internet. They help reinforce your entity because it's all branded. It all goes out with your collateral, your logo. It goes out with your citations, all the whole 9 yards. You're using schema, everything that you're using to tie your entity together. Obviously, it helps with reputation when someone's doing a brand search for your brand or your client's brands, and they see high profile news outlets that have these news articles about them. They don't know that your client paid you and you paid me and I paid the upstream people to carry it. All they know is that that person has a Yahoo news article about them, which in turn is a great selling point for clients that are ego driven, like attorneys and certain types of medical professionals and real estate agents, anybody who really focuses on their name as opposed to a brand. They love to have their name in lights, with press releases. You get citations, so every single press release goes out with a perfect citation. You craft them yourself, so you know that they're going to be exactly in the format that you want them to be. Citations are a little bit less important than they once were, but they're still really important, from a branding perspective, and they just help. Referring domains, 530 outlets. You're obviously getting a bunch of new referring domains for every single press release you send out. We allow you to embed all kinds of rich media, images, videos, GMB maps, schema, all kinds of other things. We're not going to go into a deep dive there. We'll skip the exclusive features. And obviously, we have the media rooms, which everybody who uses our service loves, and a bunch of our competitors have copied because it provides a pretty powerful content silo for your client that leverages all of the work that we do on our and all the things that we do to build up our domain. Your clients, gain from that. So enough about press releases and the benefits. Let's talk about what Google did wrong. Google had the edge. A couple years, 2 years ago, we were on a call. I don't remember, frankly, I don't remember if I did it with this audience, but I know I did it with my Press Advantage customers. So those of you who are on the call who are my customers, first, thank you very much. But you probably remember us talking a couple years ago about how search is going to change with with the new AI developments. And Google. Google was in the catbird seat. They had a monopoly on search, had billions of dollars. They have the biggest index on, of content, internet wide, some of the smartest and brightest people. And I thought that they would easily be able to corner the market when it came to generative AI and an AI enabled search. And I was completely wrong. Google's main problems are, well, they don't play well with others. We've seen this before. Instead of, adopting someone else's technology, they might try and buy it, but a lot of times they'll try and build something in-house, and then it just craters. Google Plus, right? Perfect example of something they try and play, go up against Facebook, and it just sucks, and nobody uses it. They've done this over and over again, and I just, for whatever reason, didn't even think about it when I made those predictions. They always think that nobody else can do stuff better than they can, which kind of goes back to that first part about not playing well with others. They think they can always beat everybody else. So instead of partnering with other companies that are focused only on AI, they decided to do it by themselves. And instead of opening up their data to those AI companies, they kept it all to themselves. And then they're building it all in this shroud of secrecy. Everybody knew, but they didn't talk about it. They didn't let anybody in. They didn't let anybody test. And so instead of doing what these other companies like OpenAI did, where they recruit third-party developers to come in and start building on their platform, early on, Google just kept it all under wraps, and they didn't let anybody integrate. And that gives everybody else a leg up. So what was the result? Well, the Gemini launch was catastrophic. Their AI-enabled search assistant launch was also catastrophic. There was a terrible product, and it was a lot of egg on their face, so to speak. OpenAI, Anthropic, Perplexity, and a few more, really went ahead of them in leaps and bounds on pretty much every segment of generative AI and AI assistants. And frankly, nobody uses Gemini right now. You'll see people doing stuff for clickbaity, posts and things like that, but nobody's using Gemini because it's not a good product. And as far as I'm concerned, Google really missed the boat here on what I think is probably the biggest technological advancement that I can remember in the, maybe going back to when the internet first came about, which unfortunately I remember firsthand. But Google really dropped the ball on this, and then they've got all kinds of other problems. We all know how bad the search results are getting. Everybody's complaining about them. Customers don't like them. Google, from a financial perspective, is no longer really able to tap new markets, and so now they're cannibalizing their own revenue, which is one reason why the search has gotten so bad, is because you've got they're getting all their money from ads, and you have to change the search results to make the ads better, and that makes the search product worse. And it's like, oh, okay, guys, you're in this vicious cycle. Used to be they could open up brand new markets, and they just don't have that opportunity anymore. And the most scary thing is federal regulators are now targeting Google very actively. I right now it's kind of a distraction. I think there's a very real chance that it ends up with a bigger distraction, and could actually, split some of Google's products up and out of the main company. Probably not to the extent that we saw with, back, well, I thankfully was not around then, but back when the bells got broken up into the baby bells, in the telecom industry, probably not to that extent, but I think there's a very real potential for at least search and advertising to be separated a bit, and potentially also some stuff with YouTube as well. So this is a space to kind of keep your eye on and watch from a regulatory perspective. As a result of all of this, Google's share of the search market has been declining pretty steadily. I saw a graph yesterday, actually, and I couldn't find it this morning when I wanted to add it here to the presentation, that shows that for the last 18 months, Google's search share has been dropping off of a cliff. I think that is related to not just everything that you see on the screen here, especially the poor quality of search results, but also the way that the various AI tooling is impacting search today. So on that note, how is AI impacting search? Well, this is one thing that I did get right a couple years ago. I think there's two major ways that AI is impacting search. First, you have the Copilot style AI assistants. These are on search results pages. You type in a search query, and you get that little summary up at the top. Sometimes it's more interactive than others, but you get this kind of AI generated summary of the search results, and then you get the search results down below. I think that will continue to iterate a bit, but that's kind of what you get. And you've seen that Google and Bing in particular are taking slightly different approaches with this, with Bing being, the Copilot there being much more interactive than Google's. And then you have the first class AI assistants that are search capable. Perplexity was kind of the big one for a while, but OpenAI just launched Search GPT for Chat GPT, and I suspect Anthropic will not be far behind with search integration for Claude. But even without search capability, these AI assistants are very good, and even though their data is sometimes out of date for recent stuff, it's very, very good now for most things. For us to be successful moving forward, we have to understand where that data is coming from. When they all got this big chunk of data up front when they're building their models, but then they keep adding more to it. And where is that data coming from? And we have to understand how that works and where that data is coming from, and then how do they decide what's important, and who gets a high profile and who doesn't. And like I also suggested a couple years back, local search is far less impacted than organic, but I do think that local search is going to become more and more impacted by this as it goes down the road. Organic search is definitely, I've talked to a lot of people, specifically B2B companies, that are seeing pretty major hits to their organic search after the AI quote unquote revolution. We're in the classic early adopter phase of the tech adoption curve. So those of you who have seen the curve, you always see, you got the early adopters, and then it kind of tails off a little bit, and then eventually it hits mainstream and it spikes, or maybe it doesn't and it goes off a cliff. But there's this very common adoption curve for new technology, and we've got a really interesting opportunity here after Google has fumbled the ball, because now some of these other search competitors can gain market share by picking up that ball when it comes to generative AI. And Bing in particular is probably one of the bigger players here, because they, unlike Google, have really worked hard to integrate with a lot of different people. And I believe that not only is Bing going to become more important for first class search, if you will, where people are going to a search engine. I think people are going to like the experience a little bit better. And then you've also got some other players in there, but I think Bing is probably the clear number two there. But these search integrated chat assistants like Perplexity or the new Search GPT are going to continue to eat market share from Google. People are using Perplexity in particular. I like it a lot. If you haven't played with it, you should. It's a pretty compelling product that summarizes everything, but also gives you links to where the data came from. It's great for research and things like that. You can expect OpenAI, Anthropic, and Perplexity, and the other open source models as well to continue to make improvements, and really leapfrog each other with capabilities. We've watched, OpenAI and Anthropic doing that back and forth, where 1 minute, ChatGPT is the thing, and then Claude comes out with a new release and it's better, and then here comes OpenAI again. So you've got this ratcheting effect where it just keeps getting better and better. And I see no reason why that's going to slow down. In fact, I would suggest that it's actually probably going to get a little bit faster. And I would not be surprised to have another player, kind of come to prominence here, especially somebody that might be a little bit more focused on specific verticals. I think that's a big gap here, but that's neither here nor there. Like I said, Bing is much more important for generative AI than Google. Period. End of story. It is. Google does not share their data. Bing will share with pretty much anybody that wants to come in and either partner or pay a licensing fee. And they're very open with their data because that's not the core of their business model. And so that frees them up to do a lot more things that Google is not willing to do. Like I said a little bit ago, you really have to crack the code on getting into these models, especially with Meta and X. These kind of walled garden LLMs, because they're going to be really focused on what's going on in their platforms. X is going to be very focused on what's going on Twitter or X. Meta is going to be very focused on the content that it's getting from Facebook. So those algorithms and the methods for getting into them are going to be different. And so, that's kind of one thing that still remains to be seen a little bit, other than be prominent on those platforms and be active, just like you would from a social media perspective anyways. You have to understand how non-Google search engines, especially Bing, but some of the other ones, how do they work, how do they rank things, and especially where are they getting all of their information for local search. Bing certainly has their version of a GMB, but they get a lot of other data, third-party data, that they're tying in and pulling into their rankings as well. So it's one of these things where you want to take the time and understand how other search engines beyond just Google work, because gone are the days when we can just focus on Google. And then I would also expect that there's going to be much tighter integrations with mobile. If you look at what Apple's doing recently with their native integrations, Samsung's doing it as well. On the Android platform. Google obviously is going to do stuff, if they haven't already, with their phones. But expect the mobile to be much more tightly integrated with these assistants, because it's a natural way for people to use their phones. It's a natural step beyond the Siri and Alexa of the world into these AI enabled assistants. And how do you how do you get into them? That is going to be a killer app, I think, for local as well, because local with mobile integrations is going to be really important. So how do they get their data, right? That's always the question. So I'd love to hear from you guys. How do you think that the different models get their data? So just throw it in the chat. How do you think they get it? And let's ignore Meta and X, because they aren't really search integrated. So come on, guys, throw it in there.
You guys have to have some ideas.
Come on, guys. I'm not the expert here. James says they Google it. Yeah, probably not.
Yeah, probably not. Since the Google results are so terrible anymore.
Yeah. John says Bing. Yeah, Bing is definitely a source.
That's it. We got 2 out of 24.
That's it. Come on, guys. You got to do better than that next time. Let's move on to the next page. Social media, Wikipedia. Okay, all right. Now we're getting somewhere.
Now we go.
CIA. Yeah, I think you're about right on that one, Elijah. So most of these models have a common foundation. They all have a very similar methodology for getting data into their corpus. First, they use public data sets. Then they have internal data sets. They do what I call multimodal content scraping. We'll talk about what that is in a minute. And then, of course, they use partnerships like Google and Reddit, right? Google has a line on all of Reddit's content now, and they did this partnership. And nobody else is going to be able to get Reddit data, for better or worse, right? The most important thing is Google does not share. Non-Google language models do not have access directly to Google's data. They could scrape it, but Google is actually pretty good about, not letting you bulk scrape, kind of at scale. It's easy for us to kind of do the scraping that we want to do because we're not doing it at scale, but scraping Google at scale would be very, very difficult. And so, these people are getting it somewhere else. So what are public data sets? These are it's not redundant there where I say public data sets. There are language models, data sets out there that are available, for the public. Some of them are raw, some of them are filtered, some of them are specialized, whole nine yards, right? Where people have built these smaller language model data sets that you can use for specific purposes, all that sort of thing. Then you've got broader open source language models that are generally useful language models. They're not focused on anything in particular, but these are available for anybody. There's a ton of them out there, right? And then you've got these public web crawl data sets. And I say public, I don't necessarily mean free, right? These might be data sets that you have to pay for, but there's a set of companies out there that crawl the internet, and that's just kind of what they do. They crawl and index the internet for their own reasons. They usually will sell data. They might be research applications, that sort of thing. There's several large ones out there, and they almost universally have been a major foundation for all of these language models. Most of them are updated semi-frequently, not as frequently as say Google would be, but they are upgraded monthly or quarterly, and there's good ways to get onto into language models through those crawl data sets. Then you've got the dubiously legal sources that I call. You've got torrents that are full of data. You've got data sets that are based on like ebook archives that are basically pirate ebook archives, like libgen and stuff like that. Nobody will admit to it, but you can guarantee that given how much data is in those pirate archives, that they have all been assimilated. They're in an easy to read format for them for the most part, and you can be assured that those data sources are there. Those are obviously not really things that we're going to get into. And then you've got Wikipedia. Obviously, Wikipedia is going to be a major, source for them. And then news archives. So that's both historical archives, but then also, fresh news and the kind of that day-to-day stuff. Where you have the daily news. You've got press releases. Go figure. Non-newsy, news articles, feature articles, that sort of thing, the special interest type of stuff. All of that stuff gets lumped into this news category that all of these models are using to integrate into their data sets. And then you've got internal data sets. They've all got their own crawlers and scrapers, and some of them are not very nice. Like Perplexity historically will completely ignore robot instructions and other things like that. They will hammer a website into oblivion, if it wants to. And then some of them behave nicely. Anthropic and OpenAI, both of their crawlers are pretty well behaved, and they'll listen to you when you give them directives and that sort of thing. Obviously, if you have internal data, Google, Meta, X, they're going to use it, and sometimes underhandedly. So like Google, and if you look at the terms of service, and I will thank Brian Cotto for this little tidbit that he pointed out to me a little bit ago, is that Google puts into their terms and service that they are going to use all of your data, whether it's Gmail or Sheets or Docs or Drive, any of that stuff. They're going to use it all, and they're going to use it for the next 3 years or so. And if you don't want them to do that, then you have to tell them no. And if you tell them no, then they're just going to use it for the next year. I think that's what it was. So Google is not really behaving very nicely when it comes to customer data. So kind of beware and be aware that they're doing that. And, maybe there's a way to manipulate since they're doing that, if you get my drift. And then you've got synthetic data. I'm pairing this up with conversations that people have with the assistants as well, because synthetic data is basically AI generated data that's used to further train AI models. And so, they'll kind of refine data using AI models, and then they'll drop it back into a model, or they'll take the assistants, if you've ever used ChatGPT or something, and it says, which one of these responses is better, right? That's a method that it's using to learn and to refine those models. And then you've got third-party data, whether it's from Reddit or Yelp or somebody like that. They're bringing that stuff into the data set as well. Bing obviously is a big source for everybody other than probably Google and Meta might use it. I don't know actually, and I don't think X uses anything other than X. But all of the other mainstream and a lot of the open source models will use Bing data very aggressively. Then you've got multimodal content scraping. This is not something that really happened with those first generation models, since those were largely text-based. But every commercial AI company is able to process non-text content now. So video, audio, images, PDFs, etc. They process it, they integrate it, and so we're going to use that, right? So OpenAI, for example, developed their Whisper service in order to be able to scrape video and audio correctly and transcribe it. So they will go out and they have bulk scraped essentially YouTube videos and Rumble videos, and gone out there and processed those videos, built up the transcripts, and then now they're doing image recognition to try and kind of analyze what's going on the screen. It's pretty crazy what they're doing to try and improve these models. So more and more this multimodal stuff is beyond important, because it's that new next frontier of building these models out, and then also building these special models that are able to do video generation and audio generation and all of that sort of thing from a simple prompt. So all of this is yet another way where we can kind of push our stuff in. Now, what this ends up with is what I call the modern day gold rush, because we're kind of going back in time a little bit to where it was easier to exploit Google for profits. But now with the fragmentation, this gives us all as early movers a pretty big opportunity. We kind of live in a bubble. We think AI is crowded, that there's all these tools out there, and it's not. We think that search might be dead, and it's not. It's just changing. And most of us are still 100% Google focused, and a lot of us are still working with outdated information. So like I'll still have conversations with people that think that no follow links and unlinked brand mentions are completely useless when it comes to Google SEO. And that's just wrong, right? No follow links are fine, and unlinked brand mentions are fine too. And in fact, they still help. They may not help quite as much as a linked brand mention, but they still help a lot. And what that means is you've got this great opportunity to exploit for all of your clients and for yourself too. So the key is here to branch out. And the logical next step is to branch out and focus on Bing a bit, because OpenAI, Anthropic, and Perplexity all use Bing data pretty heavily. Bing is happy to share their data, unlike Google, which is a big competitive advantage for them, because they become kind of that underlying support for these language models. So if you're not focused on Bing yet, you should. That doesn't mean leave Google behind, right? Continue to do what you're going to do with Google, but really, focus on where you can add, the Bing focus as well. For example, maybe beefing up Yelp profiles for your clients, because Google or Bing likes Yelp when it comes to local businesses, even though they've got kind of their own GMB thing. Bing leans heavily on Yelp. That's just a simple example of some of the things that you can add to your workflow that will make your chances of ranking things on Bing a bit better. Press releases work even better on Bing than they do on Google, and you still get tons of duplicates, if you will. You see lots of pickups because Bing doesn't have the same type of technical limitations that Google has nowadays. And other search engines are going to use similar mechanisms to Bing. So, you should, if you are focusing on that, you're going to kind of 80-20. And frankly, I think that, yes, you've got DuckDuckGo, you've got Brave Search, you've got, Kagi, I think is the new one that is paid. You've got all these smaller players out there, but realistically, Bing is the number 2 gorilla in the market, and they're going to probably eat the lion's share of that market, because OpenAI and Anthropic in particular, and Perplexity to a lesser extent, are going to be the major players in the in search enabled AI moving forward. So you've got some time before the general SEO industry catches on, because most of them are still arguing about where the ball is and talking about the helpful content update and what's spam and what's not. And boy, Google said this. Should we follow it, or should we, remind ourselves that over decades they have always said stuff that is the complete opposite of what actually works? And are we going to argue about that, or are we going to focus on what's coming down the pipeline? And I would argue that it's probably best to look at where the ball is going to be. So take action now, broaden your strategy, get it outside of just a pure Google focus, and you're going to see a pretty significant competitive advantage. Once you are there, once you are ranking tops in Bing as well, then you're going to have, you're going to be much harder to unseat when it comes to, that competitive landscape. So. All right. Any questions from that before we start talking about how you can use Press to get into these language models?
I don't see any.
I don't either. All right.
Think you're good.
So how do we get the content in there? Well, so first we need to know what the most important factors are, and how do we kind of satisfy those factors. We're only going to go at this from a pretty high level, because if we went into all the details, we'd be here for hours, and I'm already long-winded as it is. And so we do have some training coming down the road where we're going to dive into detail on all of this, that not just from a press perspective, but also just from a general content perspective. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. And in no particular order, what's important? Well, search rankings, right? That's the obvious thing. And this is mostly on Bing, except for Google Gemini. Brand is really important. All of these models, they will emphasize content that has strong branding. They will emphasize content that references strong brands. So we want to be very, aware of how we're building our brand. We also want high quality multimodal content. So we want good video out there. We want good audio out there. We want good images out there. Anything that is kind of that non-text, we want it. PDFs, all of these things. It feels a little old school, and it's maybe not necessarily, as human consumable as a text piece might be, but we want it out there. Take advantage of taking long form video, breaking it up into short form video, and posting it all over YouTube, posting it on the internet, embedding it places. All these methods for getting that non-text content out there is going to help. Brand. Did I mention brand before? Brand is really important, right?
I
You're
love
kind of
that, by
get
the
a
way.
little sense here, right? Third-party content also important, and by third-party content I mean, like I said, Yelp reviews, any of these review sites that are relevant for your industry. So every industry that you work in is going to have a third-party review site, or sometimes a dozen of them. Some of you might be working with Bradley on building directories for your market. That would be great third-party content that is going to help get your clients into these language models, because it is a brand builder, and it is a something that imparts some importance on that person or that company. So anybody who's kind of that third party that's talking about a brand is going to be useful there too. User-generated content. This is kind of like, this is like Twitter, it's Facebook, it's Reddit, it's kind of all of these social media platforms. Anywhere else that, there's still forums out there, believe it or not, and all of this type of stuff is going to be useful. It tends to be a lot more topical and structured, so it's easier for folks to parse, unless you're on Facebook, in which case it's the Wild West, right? Or X, I guess, is too. And then we come to brand, because we haven't really talked about that very much. Yeah, I did include brand 3 times, because brand, just like we can't really harp on brand enough when it comes to Google search, we can't really harp on brand enough when it comes to getting into the language models, because that is one of the primary filters that they use, is do you have a strong brand or not? And so anything that you can do to build that brand up is going to not only improve your chances of ranking on Google, it's not only going to improve your chances of ranking in Bing, it's not only going to improve the prospects view of that brand in their decision making, if you will, but it's also going to help these language models integrate your content, because you are now an authoritative brand in your vertical, in your industry, and so what you have to say is important. And Bradley, I saw you come off of dark screen, so maybe you had something to say there.
I did, because I've been hammering this point for the last many months now about how I've never seen how branding has such an effect. Building brand authority to a local business brand will make all other SEO efforts easier. You can have significant deficiencies in many of those other areas that we typically are trying to optimize for. If the brand is strong enough, it can still rank really, really well in its own local market. And so, like, that is by far the tip of the spear. The most important thing that we should be working on as SEOs for our local business clients right now, as it relates to local search, is building brand authority. And press releases are one of the significant components of building brand authority that I use. In fact, in the brand builder service that we sell on our white label services, premium press release distributed through Press Advantage is one of the critical components of that. That and an ID page, etc. So what Jeremy's, I love how he put brand in there multiple times. That wasn't an accident, guys. So thank you,
100%
Jeremy.
intentional.
Yep.
And we actually have something coming, down the pipe here that we'll talk about in a little bit that's going to help enhance brand even more than you can with a regular press release. So stay tuned for that. But the most important factor is a pretty old school factor. It's backlinks. Every AI company is investing heavily in their own crawling infrastructure, and they'll leverage the third-party stuff as well. And all of them are heavily backlink dependent. They are even Google is still heavily backlink dependent, but they've tweaked their algorithm to add so much other stuff in there because they have so much other data that as a percentage basis, it's less important. But backlinks today for getting into your language models and to get your stuff crawled and indexed by the language models are as important as they were in Google like 10 years ago. It's that big of a difference. The site reputation, and I put domain authority and domain rank here just to have something to call it. I know that you guys have probably heard me talk about how much I hate those terms because they're just kind of arbitrary, and it's whatever SEMrush or Ahrefs or whoever you're using kind of wants to call it, and however they want to calculate it. But directionally, it gives us something to talk about. The more prominent your website is, the more backlinks it has coming into your website, the better those backlinks are. In other words, are they coming from higher domain authority outlets? Are they coming from high profile websites? The better it is, right? And so when I say the broader the backlink net you have, the more your content gets in, right? And what I mean by that is not just focusing on site reputation, because that's still important, but you need to throw lots of lines out there, right? You want lots of backlinks because these crawlers will sometimes, cut their crawl. If we think back to how Google handles crawling budget and stuff like that, these crawlers tend to have much lower crawling budgets on a per site basis. And so if we just focus on a few high profile sites to get our backlinks followed so that our content gets a look and that our content can get processed, then what happens if that crawl budget is used up? Whereas if we throw this giant net of backlinks out there, where we have our tier ones, right, and then we have our tier twos as say press releases, right, and those press releases are linking back to our content, and each press release has 500 pickups, and so now you've got 500 backlinks back to that that core content, and then maybe we're building a stack on top of that, and so now you've got this natural flow of building these backlinks that are pointing to the other pickups and so on and so forth. You're building this big mesh or net of backlinks for these crawlers to find because they are less sophisticated than Google. They're still good, but they're less sophisticated and they don't have the per site crawling budget that Google does. And so they will do a less deep crawl. And so having a lot of backlinks out there really matters. Backlinks are used for discovery. So the models, when they crawl and index a page and they see the backlinks, they'll use that obviously to find the next pages to go and crawl. But your content really matters because they will associate your content with brand, right? And if you have a strong brand, then that content's going to get more budget. So think back, like I said, about 10 years ago when, crawling budget mattered, but links were really important and brand was just kind of becoming a thing in Google. We're kind of back at those days. I don't know how long that's going to last, right? As infrastructures get better, as crawling, technologies, get better, but these guys aren't sharing it, right? So they're all kind of reinventing a lot of the same wheel over and over again. except for Google, obviously. But so really focus hard. And then obviously backlinks are still really strong when it comes to Bing. Bing still really loves lots of different backlinks. And so again, that's kind of double hammering, back into how do we get our data in there? Well, if it's ranking well in Bing, it's going to, get better visibility into these language models, and backlinks really matter. So the more third-party links you have, the better, right? So by third-party links, I mean a link to your client's content on someone else's site, whether it's a press release pickup, it's a review site, it's a directory, anything like that. All of these things you can build up these third-party sites yourself. You can leverage somebody like us for press releases and other media placements, anything like that. But get those third-party links out there. We're back in the day, or in kind of the heyday of wanting lots and lots of different backlinks and worrying a little bit less about the domain authority and how authoritative they are from a language model perspective. Obviously, this does not change Google, right? Google is still kind of doing its thing. And then third-party brand mentions, linked or not, are pretty important because, if you remember, the models are integrating the entire bit of content into their index, and then they filter it and everything. But the more you mention, you get those branded mentions out, the more prominent your brand is. So with Google, a lot of people say, well, if it's not a link, it doesn't matter. No, that's not true to begin with. Google's pretty good about that. But language models, especially since they are processing every bit of text on here, definitely you want to have those branded mentions everywhere, not just links, right? Go ahead.
Well, just real quick, guys, because I think everybody misunderstands what a citation is. Everybody, a lot of people think that citations are just business directory listings. And a business directory listing is a citation, but that's only one type. Any published mention of name, address, phone number, and website, or some combination of those data points is a citation, guys, right? It doesn't have to have a link. It could be just a published mention. That's a citation. A brand mention alone is a citation. So just to be clear, there are structured and unstructured citations. Structured citations are traditional business directory listings. Unstructured citations are everywhere else. Any combination of name, address, phone number, and website are published. Full stop. So citations are a vote of confidence.
So let's think about this for just a minute, right? If there's let's say the New York Times publishes a big article about press release distribution services, and they mention Press Advantage in there. There's no link, just the name, just mentions us, maybe includes the, some details on us and kind of a little bit of history to kind of tie it all together. Common knowledge, so to speak, I guess, would say that that's worthless, ignoring the fact that people might see it and read it and search for us. That common wisdom says, oh, that has no value. I mean, really? The New York Times writes a feature article and mentions your brand, and that's useless for not just for search engines, but especially useless for language models that are integrating that. You think these language models find the New York Times to be authoritative? I think they probably do, and they're going to give that brand mention, link or no link, a lot of weight in their filtering. So where does that leave us as far as press goes? So press releases, general news stories, and feature articles are really good ways to get high-value third-party links and mentions. So we already kind of touched on that, so I don't want to dive into that too much more. Like I said before, those are all valuable for Google SEO, but links in particular are really effective for Bing and for other search engines. And really, there's no better way in our mind to send out a backlink net than some of the press release structures that we recommend. And by that I mean, like, press release stacks, maybe tying them together with some of the sheets stuff that you've learned over the years, and really putting out these link structures out there using press releases as kind of that core filter lever. Because it's one thing to be crawled by the crawlers, but we also have to pass the filters so that content gets in there. And the primary filters that they use is quality, freshness, expertise, and credibility. Now, quality, all of these companies are filtering for quality, and this is where your content really comes into play. Do not do thin content, right? Some of you are using thin content, little listicles with a paragraph each about something, that kind of thing. No, don't do it. Give them good meat, good high quality content. You can use AI to generate it. Make sure you run it through kind of that human element too. Make sure there's some good information there. But have that solid content that is not just meat on the bone, so to speak, but it should also kind of match what it's expecting. So if you're writing a piece of content about the proper way to cut down a tree, it should kind of match the proper way what this language model thinks is the proper way to cut down a tree, as opposed to, oh well, we're going to use dynamite instead. That's going to that's maybe going to throw some triggers, right? Language models are, at the end of the day, mathematical algorithms, and so the more they see what they expect, the more they're going to reinforce that, and the more they're going to see you as a quality source of information. Then freshness is a huge signal. Obviously the language models got all that old information before, right? They ingested tons of information off of the internet, and now they're trying to bring freshness into things. So freshness is one of the biggest signals that they have. And obviously press coverage, whether it's press releases or news articles that you get through us or somewhere else, any kind of press related stuff, feature articles on a website, that sort of thing, that tends to be considered fresh. Good blog content is another thing. This is another reason why it's important to have a good solid blog strategy where you're putting out that high quality content on a frequent basis, because it's fresh, right? And then you need expertise. This is kind of where you may overlap a bit with some of the Google entity work that you may have done, where, for example, you establish an author entity to write all of your stuff. Press releases don't really have authors, but a news article or a feature article would, a blog post would, right? So you want to establish authority for that person. That person has to be an expert, has to show expertise. And we do that by providing good quality on a frequent basis, and making sure that they have a profile like a real person would. They don't have to be a real person, right? We can make up these people, but they have, it has to have some sort of a profile there that you can tie everything back to. And then obviously credibility, right? Being published on a high quality outlet, whether it's a high quality news outlet, a prominent website, if it's a press release or a feature article, whatever, all of that enhances the overall credibility of the content because of the neighborhood that it's in, where it's posted. And so that's a place where, again, press releases, specifically our press releases, with the quality of our network, the quality of our premium network, and then the feature stuff that we'll talk about in a minute, that really helps here a lot. So overall strategy, good quality content on your site is a requirement. This is a place where you can leverage press releases heavily, much more than the normal 2-a-month recommendation. This is more content oriented. So if you're putting out, what we used to call pillar content, once a week, then you should be sending out press releases about it once a week, maybe even twice, 2 press releases per content spaced apart or something. So this is where you'd want to add some volume. Link to your high quality content though. So we're going to kind of get away from, lots of smaller articles that we're linking to kind of trying to figure out what's going to vibe with Google. We want to make sure that we're building lots of backlinks to our really high quality stuff, the stuff that has all the meat on the bones. Go ahead, Bradley.
Yeah, thanks, man. I just wanted to quickly reiterate something though, guys. Remember, especially when it comes to local, you got to be careful if you're publishing content on local sites that you're not cannibalizing from blog posts. You're not cannibalizing your top level pages, the ones that
Yep.
have conversion goals, guys. You have to be smart about how you're publishing content now because of the helpful content update. All
Mhm.
of those of you out there that just puke content out onto your client sites because you think that you're supposed to target every single freaking keyword under the sun on your blog and on the site, that's not helping right now. I promise you, that is hurting your performance. So you got to be wise and smart about that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, come join Hump Day Hangouts. I talk about it almost every damn week. Okay, but it's really important. So what Jeremy's saying is true. You want to focus on building links and pushing authority to your top level pages that are optimized for entities, not keywords. Okay, be clear about that.
And just to kind of double down on that, and this has nothing to do with the slide, but I'm just going to riff off of what Bradley just said. Over the last several months, I've been talking a lot with, kind of B2B companies about their content and stuff like that, because I'm trying to come up with some kind of new ways which we can leverage press releases and other news content. And I look at what's working and what's not, and what I am seeing working for, kind of these solid companies that have good traffic. It's that deep content, that heavy content that has good detail. Maybe have jump links and stuff like that to that level. Because it's that it's that expansive. What I don't really see working is these short little 300 word, 400 word articles that are keyword optimized for one thing. That stuff isn't really ranking very well. And when it comes to looking at it from an LLM perspective, you're just chewing up that crawl budget for your site on subpar content. You want them crawling that heavy content. You want the stuff that's going to match all those filters, that's going to show how authoritative you are, that's going to be comprehensive, right? So we're really getting back to the days of 3,000-4,000 word articles that are going heavy into stuff that are establishing you as an expert in that field, or establishing your client as an expert in that field. And we're focusing on that kind of content, because that thin content is not working anymore. The next thing is using offsite structures like it's 2010. And I say that because, that's when we started Link Emperor, right? And, I've actually been talking to somebody recently about, boy, would it be a good idea to bring Link Emperor back for a while because of this, because of, all of the structures that it could build from a backlink perspective. And would that be effective here? Because, I call them nets, right? But you can go back to all the different types of offsite structures that worked, and then layer in the things that we know that work for Google today from a tier 2, tier 3 perspective. And you can put all that stuff together. You're filtering all of these offsite structures anyways for Google, from Google's perspective. They just don't derive a lot of Google value. Well, they derive a lot of value for these uh, call them less sophisticated crawlers. So, feel free to use heavy duty offsite structures as well. Obviously, press release stacks are really, really an important thing. For this, I don't necessarily like the model where you have one and then it links to the next one and it links to the next one. I actually like having a base release and then linking every additional release back to that. It spreads that net out a lot wider instead of a lot more vertical, if that makes sense. Because remember, we want to be careful about link depth when we're trying to optimize for these language model crawlers. And then rant. All right. Do I really have to say anything more? Every single release, and this has nothing to do with language models. You should do this anyways, but every single release should be focused on the brand as well. And then you want to enhance your brand strategy with what we call earned media placements. A single placement on TechCrunch or Bloomberg or something like that can really move the needle for you. And then if you're going to use earned media, send out press releases about it, right? It's a natural thing to do. It's going to throw that link net out there. Every single bit of press, whether it's press releases, earned media articles, news articles, anything like that, case study that you write and you publish on LinkedIn, and anything like that. All of that should be taken out of just text and moved into video, audio, derive snippets, make short videos, anything you can think of that can take one piece of text content and put it into different modalities and throw it out there, get it published, put it on YouTube, put it on Rumble, put it on any video hosting platform you can, et cetera, et cetera. You should, if you're not doing that today, you got to be doing it regardless, right? It's going to help no matter what, but it's really going to help as far as getting your branded content attention in the language models. Correspondingly, make sure you're using media embeds in press releases and any feature articles that we send out for you. You want those YouTube videos embedded. You want all of that stuff in there. And then now is a time when I've recommended that we back off on lots of links in your press releases, but here's a time where if you've got these offsite structures like an iframe form or an S3 page, a Google Sheet, anything like that, that's going to have all of these links in them that you want to get crawled by these crawlers, you might sneak in that third link again and bring that back into your press releases, as long as you're not sending out short press releases. And you can kind of help get that, get those LLM crawlers out to those sites as well. Obviously, this is a really deep topic, right? And it's not, like I said, it's not something we can do justice on the call. And I know we've gone on about this for over half an hour, but it's really just the basics. So we're definitely doing a longer training on this that goes into depth on not just the general concepts on how we're getting content into language model data sets, but then how you can leverage press releases and other, other types of content marketing to get into those. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Let's look for any questions. What does broader backlink net mean? We answered that. Brand expander training, brand extensions, PR stack structure. Yes, I will actually also mention that in our training center, for those of you who are customers or who may become customers in the future, we did redo all of our training this year, and I go pretty in depth into several strategies that I like for using different types of press release stacking methods. And we have some automation for that too. Yes, Mr. Merlino loves sending branded traffic. That is his thing, and he is not wrong about it, not even a little bit. So, listen to Mike. Levi asked about the PR stack. Do you want to talk about that real quick, Bradley?
Is that all right? Do you mind if I very
Go for it.
briefly?
Yep. Gives
All
me a
right, well,
chance to
let
have
me
a drink.
grab this. Can I grab the screen from you real fast?
Yeah, how do I do that?
I think I just grab it. Guys, tell me,
It's all
is
yours.
it showing now?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so Levi was asking, guys. So what and Jeremy's 100% right. Through my own testing, I came to the same conclusion. It's serendipity, right? That's how it's interesting how different SEOs or different people come to the same conclusion without discussing it between among each other, you know. Anyways, but I agree. I found that this type of a stack is performing significantly better now than the kind of mono silo structure that we used to use, which would be daisy chained PRs. I found that this is better because you create, or excuse me, you treat one of the press releases like a top up silo press release. In
Yep.
other words, and then then you just add supporting press release. So Levi was asking specifically the linking structure or strategy with that. So with that, I would use a brand anchor linking to the target URL, or what I call a compound anchor, which is a brand plus, meaning a brand plus a location modifier or brand plus a keyword. Okay, but some sort of a brand anchor that would be linking to the target URL. And then from there, the supporting press releases that are going to link to that top of stack or top of silo PR are going to be keyword based anchor text links that are going to be reinforcing whatever the primary theme. Remember, you guys should be optimizing your press releases for entity terms, not for specific keywords. But then in your supporting press releases is where you can optimize for specific keywords if you wanted and have a press release targeting a particular keyword that then would be linking to the entity optimized PR, which is the top of silo press release. That's very similar to how I would recommend doing blog content on a local site right now, is making sure that any kind of blog content that's optimized for specific keywords is nested underneath the appropriate top level page or within the appropriate silo so that the internal linking is such that Google understands that all of the credit should be pushed to the top of silo page, the page that is optimized for entities. So that's how I've been doing press release stacks recently, and they tend to perform quite well.
Yep,
Any
that's the
comments on
exact
that?
model that I recommend. 100%.
Perfect.
I
Perfect. Well,
think
then
the
it's
only thing that I would add to that is the anchors, from the top level press release to the main site, if you will. And you may already include this in your definition of a branded anchor, but branded with generic terms around it, to me is pretty beneficial as opposed to just the brand mention itself.
right.
But you may already include that. So, all right. Where did my chat box go? Jim, has anyone created a link loop by embedding a public spreadsheet that contains links to all the links in a PR blast? Yes, Jim, there are some great methods to do that. It is very effective. We talk a little bit about that in some of the training, but there's some stuff there that I don't like to share out in public that I am always happy to talk about on one-on-one calls. But yes, you can do that. There's a few. It doesn't have to be a spreadsheet. It can simply just be looped pages that are in an S3 or where you're building other cloud sites and stuff like that that are not branded. That's a very effective method to get more attention on there. Chris and John are both asking about PR into audio video. We'll talk about that in a minute. Jim says a link hub that links all the URLs from the same press release. Yes, yeah. So we just talked about that. The two things that I didn't put on the slide that I feel like I should mention, and there's just so many different factors here, but two very important things that language model crawlers are looking at right now that I didn't mention. Number one is sitemaps. Sitemaps are very, very important for language models. They use that as a huge signal about what to crawl. So make sure your sitemaps are correctly optimized, and don't include all the piddly stuff on your sitemaps because you don't want them crawled by language models. And so really make sure that you have a well-crafted sitemap. Go ahead, Bradley.
Well, again, you just brought up something else. You're on fire today, Jeremy, because I do 5 to 7 audits per week right now. It's absolutely ridiculous how many audits I do, and there's a lot of SEOs that call themselves SEOs that submit projects for auditing that have like 15, like, and that's an exaggeration, but it'll have like 7 sitemaps, like they're Elementor sitemaps, they're sitemaps for breadcrumb sitemaps, and like various like file type of sitemaps and all this stuff that is wasting crawl budget, guys. You should be focusing any crawl budget that Google affords to a particular site, and any of the other large language models for that matter, to only the pages that should be crawled. So you guys go check your sitemaps. If you guys have post tag sitemaps and category sitemaps and like various other kinds of category sitemaps from the page builders that you're using and element sitemaps and all this other kind of stuff, you're wasting crawl budget. What is the
Yep.
purpose of all of that? It's not helping. So stop it. Like, stop putting all of your site. What you want to do is exclude certain sitemaps from the sitemap index and set them in your SEO plugin settings and the sitemap settings, set them to no index, right? So you're not wasting crawl budget on that stuff. So Jeremy just made a really good point, because I see it all the time and I'm like, well, what the hell is the point of all these different sitemaps in there that serve zero purpose for SEO, but yet you're telling Google to crawl them? And a lot of the times when you click on the items within the sitemap, you'll see that the meta robot says index follow. So you're telling Google to go crawl and index these pages that are never going to index and have no business indexing. So I'd
Mm-hmm.
encourage you guys to take a look at your technical SEO factors, because one of the things that Helpful Content Update really hit or was addressing was anything that creates crawl resistance. So if you can lower crawl resistance, your site will perform. You'll have a higher site quality score. Therefore, your site should perform better in search.
Yeah, don't crawl your indexes, right? Don't crawl your tags. You don't want any of that stuff. Don't crawl your about page. I mean, maybe your about page, because that can help build entity, but your terms of service and stuff like that, don't put that in your sitemap, right? Focus, make sure that you have the appropriate settings in your sitemap as far as how often things are updated and how important they are and that sort of thing. So again, just make sure that sitemap is properly crafted. And then the other thing I really wanted to touch on real quick is structured data. A lot of us are already using schema, but a lot of us are not using schema well, and we're using pretty basic schema. Language models love structured data because it gives them they can process it much better, and they will default to using structured data for a lot of what they're trying to do with a given page. So this is where you should have custom schema for each page, right? You want that schema that goes into detail. You're using all of the, your author schema, you're using your article schema, you're using anything that is relevant, any piece of structured data that logically makes sense, that's going to give a crawler, whether it's Google's or otherwise, information that it can easily process and easily digest. And it goes back to crawl resistance, kind of like Bradley was saying, right? We are feeding the bots information that they can use on our behalf, and we are kind of force feeding what they want or what we want them to have, and leaving out what we don't necessarily want them to have. They're still going to crawl the page itself. They're still going to process the page itself. But if we're already helping to build all these different entity associations, and of course Google's version of what an entity is and an LLM's version of what an entity is are completely different, but they're still built on the same fundamental building blocks. And so by providing Google and all of these other crawlers with this structured data, we are giving them what they need before they consume the content. So now they can associate the content with the right entities. Very much the case with LLMs. I can't specifically speak to how Google processes it, but LLMs will consume the structured data first and then the content on the page second. So specific, well-crafted schema is more important than ever now, and especially for that content that you want to get into those language models. So now, that may have sounded like my rant, but it wasn't my rant. So let's talk about my rant. Um, like I said at the beginning, I talked to a lot of agency owners and I talked to a lot of consultants. And the one thing I'm really, really tired of hearing is, well, we have no budget for that. And I'm not talking about that from the perspective of me, I want you to buy my stuff, right? Because, if my stuff will help you, I want you to buy it because it'll help you. If it isn't going to help you, I don't want you to buy it. I don't just want your money. I want you to get the value. But when I hear somebody, and even at our base pricing, which, for those of you who don't know, if you come in off the street, buy, our base package at $4.99 a month for 3 press releases, that's like $165 a release that you can then turn around and sell for $300 easily to a client. But I hear, oh, well, I'm only charging my client $400 a month. I'm thinking, what on earth are you doing? Do you want 10 clients that are paying you $400 a month, or do you want one client that's paying you $4,000 a month? Because I will guarantee you that the work required to get that $4,000 is about 10 times easier with that $4,000 a month client. That $4,000 a month client is going to value what you give a lot more. That $4,000 a month client is going to look at you as a partner, not a cost center. They're not going to look and see, well, shit, I need to, pair $100 off of my bill. What am I going to do? Well, there's this SEO guy, and I don't really know if he's giving me results or not. And well, $300. Yeah, let's just cancel that. No, that $4,000 a month client that you sold already sees the value because you sold him on the value, and he's not going to give you $4,000 a month unless he sees that value. Somebody who's only paying you a couple $100 a month may just take a flyer on it. I've done it, right? I've seen somebody who dramatically undervalues what I think their service can provide, and yeah, I'll sign up for it and I'll test it out. But I'm brutal about cutting it. On the flip side, I have services that I pay thousands of dollars a month to, that once I was sold, that's done. I'm paying those guys for a long time because I get the value out of it and I knew it, and they stick. Low budget clients don't stick. They come and they go. Low budget clients usually means they don't necessarily have the margins themselves. So they're not the type of clients you want to work with. You are not going to build a big business if you're servicing low budget clients. So stop servicing low budget clients. Work with people that have money. And I'm not saying that so that you can give me money, right? I'm saying that because you will build a more successful business if you are playing in the big leagues. Quit playing nickel ball. Quit playing with the small dollar amounts. Don't be afraid to ask for lots of money. If you go into the B2B space, SEO agencies are starting at $15,000, $20,000 a month. When was the last time you sent a proposal over to somebody for 15 grand? Now, you might be working with small businesses that can't afford that, but you're working with a roofer who's got tremendous margins. Well, they can afford it, right? What's a lead worth to them? How many are you giving, right? If you're driving them 10 leads that are worth $1,000 each, you're bringing them $10,000 a month in incremental revenue. You could easily ask for 2,000 of that, maybe more, right? If you do your job right, you can get them even more revenue. Part of this is also, vertical selection. Make sure you're selecting a vertical that has money. Now, do you want to be working with pressure washers that, are usually, well, not necessarily usually, but often working with, a pickup truck and a generator and a pressure washer from, Home Depot? Or do you want to work with roofing companies where one job is worth $80,000 to them? I'm working with a roofing company every day because they'll pay me $10,000 to get that job. And I have to, get a fraction of those customers to have a successful business. Because what it comes down to is if you're working with small margin clients that are not giving you a lot of money, and you're not, at $300 a month, how much are you really making off of that client? $100, maybe?
Uh-oh, did we lose Jeremy? Can you guys still hear me? I think we lost Jeremy. Stand by while I try to get him back, guys. All right, just stand by. We're trying to get him back in. I just sent him a message. I think he's coming in now.
I think I dropped off somewhere in there.
You did. You did. You froze up for a minute, and I thought you were pausing for emphasis. And I was like, damn, that's a strong pause.
That was a strong pause. Where
So,
did I stop?
you were talking about selecting a niche, and I was in the process of about ready to share selecting a niche SOP with the attendees today for free that you guys, it's very, very thorough training on how to determine which niche to select. So I'm going to share that with you guys in chat. It's free training. I'm going to give it to you guys while Jeremy continues.
All right. So I was on a roll, so I'm not exactly sure where I stopped off because this is 100% unscripted, guys. This is like genuine me. So basically, you pick the right vertical, right? And if I'm going to repeat myself, I apologize. But you don't go for the pressure washer guy who's going to, pay you a couple $100 a month and is going to, all they're going to do is run around with their pickup truck and a pressure washer from Home Depot, and they're charging their customer, $150, and not a lot of money there to make. Or you've got the roofer who's going to, make $80,000, $100,000 on a job, and they're happy to pay you 10, 15 grand for that job. I'm working with that guy because you can't build a business if you're playing small ball. And you can't build an asset that you can sell if you're playing small ball. If you're not charging what you're worth, you can't afford to bring somebody in to run it for you. You can't get yourself out of the day-to-day and into actually running the business. Because ultimately, that's what this is all about. We're not here just for a paycheck. I mean, if you are, great, but most of us aren't. Most of us are here because we're trying to build a business. And if you're going to build a business, you have to think about what happens next. And what happens next is you sell that business. You can't sell that business if you're working the day-to-day. So you have to get out of that day-to-day. You have to get out of that constant fulfillment mode. And the only way you can do that is if you're charging enough money to be able to hire somebody to do it. And the best way of doing that is A, making sure that you're working for people that have money. So picking a niche, a vertical of people that have money and that will spend money. And then you have systems and everything in place so that you can get yourself out of there. And you have enough margin in your prices. If it costs you $5,000 a month to fulfill your services, you should be charging $10,000 a month. Maybe even more, right? Because you need to have that margin. You can't grow without that margin. And if you look at the successful agencies, this is what they do. Successful agencies don't charge bottom, barrel pricing. There's plenty of competition going all the way down to the bottom, but a real business is going to take you far more seriously if you're charging what you're worth, because they'll look at you. If you're not charging what you're worth, they'll look at you and say, that guy's got no confidence in what he does. And so why would I work with him? Because I know this guy over here might be charging me more, but I know he's going to deliver, 5 new roofing jobs a month or whatever it is. So who do you want to work for? You want to work for people with money? I do. Whether you have that money to give to me for my services, or, I hope you do, but, that's not what this is about. This is about, you building a business that's going to be something that's going to supply for you in the future and is going to set you up for the future. One good solid exit can set you up for life. And it's not that hard to get to if you build your business correctly. And step one is charging what you're worth. So I don't want to hear any of you getting on a phone call with me saying, "Oh, my customers are paying me $500 a month, so I can't afford your services." It's not about my services. It's about you're charging somebody $500 a month for SEO. Put a zero on the end of that, and then we'll talk, right? So, yeah, that's the rant. Are you still with me, Bradley?
I am sorry, I was
Okay, good. I
tied
was
up
making sure.
on something else. Well, I would disagree in some regards. In other regards, no. And that is, if you are providing performance-based services or results-based services, if that's what you're promising in your pitch, if that's part of what your services are providing results, so performance-based services, then I totally agree with Jeremy. Everybody that I talk to is underselling their services. Well, most everybody. You guys are doing productized pricing for custom SEO services. And that is the problem. And so I have changed my model to where I am focusing on lower priced services as guaranteed deliverables, which are like basic foundational elements that tree service contractors need that the vast majority of them don't have. So I do very inexpensive, high volume but low cost services, which are foundational elements. But guess what? As soon as the client wants to start getting results like they want to rank, they want to start generating leads. And by the way, I target low competition areas specifically so that a lot of those front end services will produce results with no additional work. But sometimes it's going to require some additional work. Well, that's now results based services. That's another layer. There are new charges added on top of their retainers specifically for those performance based or results based services. So I kind of do a hybrid, hence the name Directory Hybrid Agency, something that I've been teaching about for some time because I think there's two ways to do it. But to Jeremy's point, if you are, a lot of you guys are out there selling results based services and you're charging productized pricing. And I think that's absolutely incorrect. If you're going to charge productized pricing, they should be productized services, which means
Yep.
you're guaranteeing a deliverable on a monthly
Yep.
basis, not a result. If
Yep.
you're going to guarantee a
100%.
result, then you should be charging accordingly, which I see a lot of you don't do. I do that as a hybrid model. I sell guaranteed deliverables, but if you also want results, in some cases, those are going to produce results. But in the cases that it doesn't, then you're in a more competitive area, whatever. Then I'm going to charge you on top of that for the specific services that I'm providing that are going to help that. Because guys, if you're under pressure and under stress to perform results, you should be paid accordingly.
Mhm.
That's it.
All right. Let's see here. Let's talk about Press Advantage. So for those of you who don't know, Press Advantage is a completely done for you press release distribution service. So we do all the writing, we do all the editing, the syndication, reporting, whole 9 yards, right? So we're a one-stop shop for you. Oh gosh, this is one of those stupid things. Let me click through all of these. All right. So why should you trust us? Well, we've been servicing internet marketers for, 13 years now. We're the very first agency in SEO focused press release distribution service. We were the first one out there. Press Cable was the second one. They followed us. We've worked with over 2,800 different agencies over the years and serviced over 17,000 different brands. And at this point, we have issued well over 70,000 press releases over the years. That's a lot of press releases. Of course, Bradley and all the guys over at Semantic Mastery, they love us. And frankly, I'm just a nice guy. So these are all the reasons why you should trust us and trust me in particular. What are the main benefits? You get top tier distribution, total quality, zero PBNs. We don't use any PBNs. Everything we do is everything everyone we partner with, let's put it that way, is a actual news outlet. We are agency focused. You can manage all of your clients with one dashboard, with one account. It makes it easy to manage everybody. We have a very user-friendly credit system that's getting even easier. We have a very flexible monthly credit system. For those of you who are on a credit plan, you get credits into your account, and how you use them is up to you. You can use them for all one client 1 month, or break it up however you like. We've recently simplified credits even more. So a credit is a press release, whether it includes writing or not. So we're getting rid of the done for you and do it yourself credits and all that confusing stuff. It's just a press release now. Our pricing is really straightforward. I really take a batteries included approach. It's comprehensive, includes everything. The only thing you can pay me more for is premium placement, because that cost me an arm and a leg to get onto Yahoo, and I can't absorb that cost for everybody. But everything else is included. So I'm not going to nickel and dime you for more words or embedding images or videos or anything like that. You get instant reporting. As soon as a press release placement gets reported back to us, which is sometimes within 15 minutes of it going out on the wire, we update your dashboard in real time, and we send you an email to that effect. Obviously, you get a big referral boost by adding, over 500 referring domains per press release. You get a lot of backlinks. So if you compare one guest post on a high domain authority outlet to what you get from us, you get a lot of high domain authority backlinks, for less than you would pay for one high profile guest post. Of course, you've got great automation, set it and forget it. You can be completely hands-free with a client as long as you don't forget to turn it off like somebody else on this call. You get all of the rich media included, like I said, so videos, iframes, maps, images, schema, other bits of JavaScript code like retargeting pixels, whole 9 yards. So all of that included. So what have we added this year? So a lot of you are already familiar with us. Some of you are already customers. Thank you very much. And what have we added this year? You guys are the first ones to hear about a lot of this stuff because I have not had my annual update webinar with my customers yet. That's coming next week. So those of you who are customers on this call, well, you get a leg up. So the first thing and biggest thing that I'm really happy about is we've added 650 new high-profile media outlets, and we'll talk about this a little bit more in a minute. These are high-end placements. We kind of teased that last spring that we're really focusing on quality and not quantity, and this is one of the resulting effects from that. We've launched a REST API, so you can fully integrate Press Advantage into your internal systems. You need a developer. You have to have some technological expertise here. But for those of you who have, kind of workflows that you're already, automating as best as possible, you can integrate us with that. So when let's say you have a Go High Level integration, or you're using Go High Level, and you add a new client to Go High Level, wouldn't it be great if it would automatically go out and create that organization and Press Advantage for you, so you don't have to go and do that? That's the kind of thing that you can do with these the new REST API. Somewhat similar, we've added webhooks on a per organization basis, and what this does is every time a press release goes out for that organization, we will send an alert to whatever webhook URL you give us. So you could do something with like Zapier or something like that. There, we've got some general use cases that we'll go over in our core training for it. But this is another way where you can kind of take action immediately when a press release goes out. We are adding, it's done, I just haven't pressed the button to take this live quite yet, a fully automated export of placement URLs to Google Sheets, where you can do a couple of different things. Number one, you can say, here's a folder in Drive. Every time a press release goes out, I want you to create a sheet, and then I want you to, add the pickup URLs to that sheet in real time as they come in. Great, we'll do that. Or maybe you want us just to do that on a per organization basis, so you have one big sheet for all of you, for that organization where all of these releases go in. So there's a couple of different iterations that we can do, and it's kind of the first cut at things, and we'll add other things as usual based on what y'all would like to see. We've got a new release report system coming out. And again, this has been a big thing for a lot of people, and our kind of some of our white label reporting has not been real great this year. We moved web hosts and something strange broke. And so this year, again, similar to the Google Sheets stuff, I've just been too busy to press the final button, even though the developers have been done with this for a couple of weeks. But it's going to be very pretty, a release report with all of the different pickup site logos and clickable links and stuff like that. It'll be PDF format and online format, so it's something you can very easily give to your customers. And this is kind of one of those mea culpa things where I've been resistant to doing anything with reporting, because I've always felt you guys have your own reporting systems, and I'll give you the data and you can integrate it in however you like. But enough of you have said, hey, look, we need this, that I've said, okay, y'all need it, we're going to do it. And so we did. And then earlier this spring, if you were on our spring webinar, we're planning on doing some updated video training that goes over, the kind of one-on-one level all the way up through advanced strategies on how to use press releases, how to use our platform, all the different features, some of the, like I alluded to before, like we go in depth into, stacking tech, strategies. I talk about specific verticals and how to approach specific verticals with press releases. All of that is updated in our training centers, literally like 6 hours of training or something ridiculous like that. We are working on breaking those up into smaller bite-sized chunks as well. Right now, they're in kind of topical, hour long videos. We're going to break those up into smaller bite-sized bits as well. There's a lot of other smaller stuff, but this is kind of the high level stuff. And like I said, we'll talk about the media outlets in a minute. So what's coming this year? First is kind of that confession about changing some of my business policies. For years and years and years, I have always said that we are not going to add things that will force you down a road. We are not going to add things that are going to be super polished for you to hand off, like the reports, stuff like that. And we're not going to force you into using strategies. And we're still not going to force you into doing anything. But one of the things that came along with that is I was giving you guys a tool that is super powerful, right? Some of the things that I see people doing with Press Advantage and our press releases is ridiculous, right? I would never have thought to use them in that way. And I have always thought, I'm giving you guys a great toolbox, and if you want to use it, use it. If you want to use secondary embeds, use secondary embeds. If you want to use a webhook, use a webhook, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm changing that a little bit. And so we are going to continue to give the tools, but I'm going to give you some prepackaged stuff too. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but I just wanted to recognize that, this is something that enough people have asked for. I've heard this over, especially this year, I've heard this a lot where we just don't know how to get the most out of the tool. And so I'm going to help you with that. And we'll talk about how in just a second. So AI specific features that we're going to add this year. A couple years ago, we wanted to add a bunch of stuff and we were waiting for technologies to level out a little bit, and they have now leveled out a little bit. And so these are kind of the things that we're going to be adding. We're adding an idea generator. We have a PDF, right? But we want a custom idea generator for your specific client. So, it's on your organization page or something like that. There'll be a link, where you can say, hey, look, I need some ideas around this topic for this client, and it will go out and it will generate ideas and angles for press releases, angles for news stories that are specific to that customer of yours. We're going to generate automatic release summaries. I don't know why we're not already doing that. That was a no-brainer. We should have been already doing this, where we'll generate a paragraph or something, and maybe and some snippets that you can use if you're posting to social media or whatever. This is a no-brainer. We should have already done that, but we're going to do it this year. And then this is kind of to John and Chris. We're going to automate some of this content conversion. So we're going to take press releases, we're going to turn it into long form video, and ideally automatically break it into short form as well. We're certainly going to bust it into audio and potentially some other formats as well, if we can kind of come up with some ideas that make sense there. But especially the video now is good enough quality that we've been able to put together some stuff that looks pretty solid. And then another idea that we're working on is kind of this gap analysis, where we will look at your organization and we will kind of go and look at what they look like on the internet, and then we'll kind of try and figure out where you might want to target some content, and then we'll maybe automatically generate some press releases that starts bringing some relevance to to that. Obviously none of this is required, right? So these are tools that you guys can use. So we're not going to do this unless you want us to, but it's another way to help you use the service in a more effective way. As far as non-AI features go, we're going to continue to improve our automation. Our developers are working on a lot of that right now, some automatic uploads of content and things like that. For example, when we automatically generate the video format of a press release, we want you to be able to upload it to a YouTube page somewhere. So we're literally working on that right now. want to build out some per client recommendations. One of the things we had back in Link Emperor was a place where you could see what was missing, like, your sitemap is bad, your meta tags are bad, whatever, from an SEO perspective. Well, there's some ways where we can kind of make some recommendations on what you can do to be more effective with your client from a press release perspective. And that's what we're looking to do here. So again, this is kind of one of those things that I've been resistant on, but enough of you have asked for that I want to help enable you to be more successful. Um, we definitely want to have some better tooling around what we've talked about today with how do you get your content into the LLMs. And so that'll probably be a tool that may or may not be outside of Press Advantage. Ideally, I think this could be something that's useful for all different types of content, not just press releases. So stay tuned on exactly how that plays out. Even if we build it as a separate tool, it'll still have tight integration into Press Advantage. And then the other big thing that we're going to do is we're going to build this big playbook library where we want to take our strategies and some of the other strategies, like the stuff that Bradley does and things like that, all the things that he talks about on Hump to Hangout. We want all this stuff to be easy for you guys to find and to use. Ideally, all the way up into one-click implementation. Like I have a specific strategy that I talk about in our training about how to start with a client. The first press release goes to premium. It's a branding press release. It sets the stage for the rest of them. Then the next 2 or 3 are all about the high-level services that they offer, and it's linking back to the first press release, right? It's that kind of that first layer of a PR stack. Well, there's no reason why we can't do that automatically for you. Why should I force you to go through all of the hassle of doing all that stuff when I could implement it and say, just do this, send out a branding stack for this client. And so we're going to work on a lot of this one-click implementation, again, just to make your lives easier, especially, and then we can also integrate it with the API that we added. So all of it can now happen automatically. So literally you could, from high level, you could, onboard a new client into our system and send out queue up the branding release stack without ever leaving high level, and hell, without even touching it. So we really want to make your lives a lot easier. So what are you going to get? So this is what I'm really excited about, right? These are our new high-end outlets. We've got 651 new earned media placements in all kinds of different verticals. These are feature articles. They're not press releases. And they are 100% custom to your client and to the outlet. So, let's say you wanted it to be in the New York Times and the Los Angeles Times. Well, we're not going to send the same article to both of them, right? Everything is completely written for you. That's written by contributing writers that already are placing content on these outlets. It's all guaranteed. So this isn't like we're going to pay $40,000 a month to a PR agency who might get us a feature in Variety magazine, right? That's not how this works. You choose which ones you want. You get a price. You say yes. Then we write the content, and out it goes. And it's a pay to place sort of thing. The price obviously depends on the outlet. The most expensive one we have is Bloomberg. I don't know why anyone would pay this, but Bloomberg would cost you about $175,000. It's a full feature article on Bloomberg, but that doesn't seem to be worth the money, at least for the type of clients that we're working with. On the flip side, you've got some that are kind of right around the $1,000 mark, and most are under $10,000, and these will definitely move the needle for a lot of brands. And this isn't necessarily something that you're going to work with en masse, but as you move up in the kind of the target hierarchy, you're targeting people with more money. You're working with some of these vertical, cosmetic dentistry, for example, very lucrative, right? These guys would love this type of stuff. They love to see their name in lights, right? There's just some examples there, right? And like I said, 650 some odd different placements. This is big. So the list will be out here pretty soon. We've got all kinds of different verticals, including crypto and cannabis, which some people we've talked to about this have asked. Pretty straightforward. Our standard distribution, same as always, 500 and some odd news outlets. This is actually our domain authority breakdown for our standard distribution. So you can see that this is not like low-end sites, right? Again, I hate the whole concept of domain authority, but it provides us with the useful metric that gives us some directional information. Of course, all the different logo sites are included. And right now on the radar, we've got about 150 new fairly high quality sites, probably in those DA50-ish range, coming in theory in the first half of next year. And of course, all of those would be included for folks that are already on the platform. Our premium distribution, this is something that you want to use once in a while. This is very good for branding. Adds those high domain authority outlets. You upgrade a press release to this whenever you want. It is not required. It is the only thing you can pay me extra for. It adds, you can kind of read Yahoo Finance, Benzinga. MSN is temporarily down for something that is outside of our control. They kind of got in trouble for some political content that came in through a different vector, and so they are moving things around. We expect that relationship to kick off again here in a month or so. Bar chart, Globe and Mail, and Globe Newswire. These don't purge, and a lot of these are solid. Do follow links if you care about that sort of thing. We also have this middle tier called Gold. We recognize that premium is expensive. The expense from premium is predominantly driven by Yahoo. And so if we pull that out and a couple of others, and we just offer this set, which is MSN, again, when it's back, Bar Chart, Globe and Mail, Benzinga, and The Street, which they've been saying it's going to go live for the last 6 months. And so one of these days it will. That's our gold tier. It's a technical limitation on our end, but we can only offer this for if it's part of your subscription. And so there's a few special subscription plans that have that. Otherwise, we price it out at about $80 a release. Once we actually fix the technological limitation, it'll be available for that much. How does it work? Well, agency first, right? So, your credits are flexible. They go into your account. You can allocate them wherever you need it. We don't charge you for clients. We don't charge you for anything extra. It's all a simple subscription, month to month, every 30 days, no annual plans or contracts, and you have a rolling 30-day money-back guarantee. And like I said, I don't nickel and dime you to death. Everything is included except for premium placement. I really need to get rid of these little animation things. Okay, so our process, you create the client in your backend. You do this one time. You fill out a simple order form, takes about 5-10 minutes, wait for fulfillment, which takes about a day. You approve the content or ask for a revision, and then it's done. Pretty simple, right? So what do you get? Well, you get more profits from every client because we're not nickel and diming you. You can show instant results because we have these custom release reports. You can build your client confidence because they love these media rooms. And I tell you, all the clients that see these media rooms, they just love them. We get you these insider tactics with the training and strategy center. Our set it and forget it automation will cut out literally tons, hours of manual work. We have people that are using this stuff heavily and they barely have to touch the platform now. You'll be able to customize your own workflows using the REST APIs, and you can, use our client-specific RSS feeds and webhooks to get those releases out everywhere when they are published. And then, of course, our support team is top-notch, and their goal, and the goal that I have given both the support folks and the editorial folks, is that at the end of every business day, the editorial queue is clean and the support queue is clean. And so you should never go longer than 24 hours without, or one business day, let's say, without hearing from our folks. And if you do, then let me know, because that's a problem, and they're not meeting their bar. And our press releases 100% done for you, so you don't have to worry about writing. You get hundreds of backlinks, you get the live pickup tracking, all the embeds, and of course iframes, retargeting pixels, and other embed types. We'll kind of gloss through. I got rid of a lot of these slides if you've seen them before, but that's what a media room looks like. Our logo is a little bit different now, but that's generally what it looks like. So you can see it's nice. It is pretty well built. It actually acts as a content silo for your client, leveraging our site. Press release page similarly. What we include for people that buy, off of our webinar offers is generally pretty straightforward. We've got the press release print shop, which is a way if you wanted to write press releases yourself. This is something you could do. Most people just have us do the writing, but if you wanted to, this is a great value there. We have a method to use news and use press releases to attract local clients. And so there's a sales letter and everything that Bobby wrote. That's a neat little thing. This one will actually probably end up going away once we have the AI stuff in place. But for now, we've got 107 different reasons to issue a press release. It's a fun little thing to read through, and some of the ideas that Bobby came up with when he wrote it are pretty crazy. And then probably in my mind, the most important one is you get access to me. I generally charge you about $500 if you're going to get on the phone with me for about a half an hour. But for people that buy, through webinars and generally through our relationship with Semantic Mastery, you get this free strategy call. And honestly, if you have 2 strategy calls, you don't get charged for that either. So I'm not real stickler about it when it comes to relationships. So. And then the last bonus is what I'm calling the Press Authority AI Evolution System. I think that's a fantastic name, don't you? And we'll talk about that in a minute. So what people are really often interested in on these calls is the unlimited plan, because as you may or may not know, we ran the unlimited plan for a long time, and we kind of brought it back a little bit this spring, and we'll talk about that right now. So the legacy unlimited plan, we had to kill it because we had problems with resellers. We had soft limits for people that were kind of using it for things they weren't necessarily supposed to, and that was a pain. Our pipelines would get slammed by people that would drop 15 releases in a day, that sort of thing. The do-it-yourself content was bad. And generally, and we'd improve it, and then they'd get a new VA, and that new VA would not do well, and it's just terrible. And so, we ended up pulling the plug. And the results for that was unsurprising. All the people that had the old plans, they kept them. People were really trying hard to get onto the plan, as Bradley can attest to, because some people asked him to ask me, and unfortunately, if an offer is closed, it's closed. I don't do the fake scarcity thing, so a lot of people were pretty disappointed. But one night, I just kind of laid awake in bed and figured out how to bring it back. I did have to fix a lot of these problems, though, right? The done for you versus do it yourself for the unlimited plan was really confusing. Obviously, we had the delays and the resellers, and we had some people that were accumulating writing done for you credits, the writing credits, even though they never used them. And then the soft caps were just miserable for you guys. They were miserable for support, and it was certainly miserable for me as a result as well. And so we launched a new unlimited plan this spring, and it was a huge hit. We did really well. A lot of you took advantage of this offer already. And we have decided that this offer will be offered to the general public next year at a much, much higher fee. It will probably still be a webinar sale, but it will not be kind of a relationship webinar like this one. There's still a couple of rough edges. I found one, the other day, but for the most part, it's pretty bug free. And so we're still kind of limiting how many early access plans, because we don't want to cannibalize the next year's sales. But there's certainly some available, and then when it reopens next spring, it'll definitely be at full retail, which is several $100s more than it is today. So the new unlimited plan is 100% done for you. The old one was do it yourself with some done for you credits, and now it's 100% done for you. So you can have us write it, you can write it, doesn't matter to us, it's 100% included. And the only reason we can do that is because last year we overhauled and improved our fulfillment pipeline. Still no problem or solution to the reseller problem, so no resellers for unlimited plans. If you are an SEO consultant or agency providing press releases to your customers as your primary offer, you're probably not reselling. But if you're selling press releases to people other than that, you probably are. For example, if you are predominantly a software services company and you are selling PRs to people as kind of an add-on or kind of adjunct or a secondary business line, you're probably reselling. So if in doubt, just ask. And if it looks like you're reselling, we'll probably talk to you. The only person that I cut off blindly was someone who cost me $30,000 a month for a while, and he deserved it. There's a new queue system where you queue up all of your releases, whatever you want, and then you have a certain number of fulfillment slots, which is spots in our overall global queue. And you can buy more slots if you need to. You can expedite urgent releases, which is kind of like getting a temporary queue slot. And obviously you can change your queue around, but this lets you build up a steady flow of press releases that will automatically work through the system. we're seeing people getting anywhere, upwards of 20 releases a month through the system. I've got one guy who I'm not quite sure how he's managed to do it, but he can get sometimes up to 30 releases a month through. So it's pretty easy system to work with. It is now completely compatible with our automation system. You could not use your unlimited press release plan before with automation because automation does require us to do the writing. And of course, there was no unlimited, done for you service before. So now that it's there, we can use the automation. This helps us smooth out all of the usage, eliminates queue spikes. We can always make sure that we have enough capacity in our fulfillment pipelines, so on and so forth. And then above all, it gets rid of those stupid soft caps. You can manage your queues, you can add or remove slots, expedite if you have an urgent need, whatever. So our base pricing is $500 a month. Just throwing that up there for those of you who don't know. We have 100% money back guarantee. If you don't like what you got, then you just let us know, and you can get a refund for your most recent month of service. I will throw out the caveat: if you send 10 press releases to premium and then you try and get your money back guarantee, I will send you your money back minus my expenses. So don't abuse the system. But if you genuinely tried it for a couple months and you just really didn't like what you got, that's cool. We'll work with you. So the offer today is going to be our Agency Unlimited plan. You can see all the fun stuff here. And then the bonus that we're going to give you is that AI evolution system. And let's talk about that and what that is right now. So what it is a simple 5-step method that we've come up with on how you can thrive in the new search landscape. So step 1 is to leverage the news authority method. Then we're stepping into the press broadcast method, followed by the brand reach accelerated content catalyst blueprint and the press intelligence engine. But Jeremy, what are those things? Well, you can build a solid foundation of backlinks and brand presence using the news authority method, and then you'll spread your message across all the different media channels using the broadcast method. And then we're going to land high-profile media features and build your expert status using the brand reach accelerator, get your content ranked and noticed by search engines using the content catalyst blueprint, and then finally, we're going to get your content into all the different AI training data sets using the press intelligence engine. And this is going to be our live training for the first part of next year. We're going to start in the first quarter of next year. We're going to sell this for $1,500 tentatively. And recordings will be available probably for about $1,000. Everybody who is an Agency Unlimited customer, whether you buying today or you're already a customer or you take advantage of we like our internal webinar whenever we run it, that sort of thing. And maybe if I could talk Bobby into saying yes, which I'm working on, Semantic Mastery members or the mastermind members will get free access into this as well.
Right on. That sounds awesome.
I'm working on it. Bobby sometimes gets wrapped around the axle about some interesting things. So we're working on that. And hopefully I'll have some good news on that too, because I'd hate for, I think this is going to be really valuable for everybody. So I'd hate for you guys to miss out just because, maybe Press Advantage isn't right for you. So the offer, Agency Unlimited for $797 a month, same as this spring. Just a few more slots that we've got before we take this full on, and then just like this spring, we have a kind of that second plan, which is where all of your releases go out into gold instead of our standard. So you get that extra beef, for all of your press releases instead of just them. You still have the option for a lesser fee to go up to Yahoo Finance and Yahoo.com, and kind of get that extra bump, if you will. But this is actually a huge value. And if it was me, this is what I would buy. And people ask me that question. I say 100% because you're getting 4 or 5 very high profile outlets for not that much more money if you're actually using the plan. And so that's what it is. You guys know I'm not a hard pitch kind of guy. I'm not a hard seller. I blew through this part of the presentation, and because I went so in depth into the other stuff. So questions, comments, anything? Let's go.
Did I get that first URL right? Yeah, I did.
Look, yep, you did.
Okay, sweet. I'm posting the other one now. Just give me 1 second. I don't really see any other questions, guys. So, I've got a hard stop coming up in like 5 or 6 minutes anyway.
You and me
So
both.
if you guys got any questions, post them now. Otherwise, we can wrap up. You got the offer. This was mainly Jeremy kind of training and talking about what the new what's been happening in our neck of the woods, so to speak, and then kind of reoffering this stuff again, which I didn't know was going to happen. So thanks, appreciate that, man. But I don't see any other questions coming in. I pretty much answered everything else throughout. I think we both did throughout the
I think so too. Yeah.
presentation. So Chris says, I'm an agency unlimited now. Is this gold offering is giving upgrades? This
Yeah,
gold
you can
offering is
upgrade.
giving upgrades.
You
Okay.
could upgrade to gold, Chris. 100%.
Very cool.
And I will actually say too, for purposes of the recording and whatnot, if you start off on gold and you decide that it's not worth what you're getting from it, and you want to downgrade to just regular agency unlimited, we're happy to do that.
Okay.
Cool.
Well, I think we're
All right.
good,
Well,
man.
you should all know how to get a hold of me. But um, if you don't, support at pressadvantage.com. Jeremy at notzelman.com. Please don't, well, here I go spreading that to the entire internet because Adam will post this on you on YouTube, but whatever. Reach out to me. Feel free to touch base, ask questions, whatever. I'm in the mastermind, so if you're in the mastermind, feel free to hit me up there in Circle. I try to be as easily accessible as I can be. I am not much of a Facebook person, so try not to message me there. But if you have questions, if you want to learn more about the service, anything like that, feel free to reach out, whether directly to me, through the mastermind, through our support system, whatever. And if you've got questions about the offer or anything, let me know. We'll probably close this down Thursday or Friday. Just kind of depends on how my week goes. I tend to forget and close things down a day or two afterwards. But if you've got questions and we're already talking, then even if it drags on past that deadline, you'll still offer or you'll still have an opportunity. And that's especially valuable for those of you that are watching the replay, because that's where most people end up consuming the content. And it's where a lot of the questions come from, because they weren't here live, so they don't get the live Q&A side of things. So there's a couple.
Chris, I think, had a question about the Yahoo. No, Yahoo's not in gold, right? That was one of those that
No,
were
Yahoo's not on
expedited.
gold. Yeah, Yahoo is the one that's not included in gold because it cost me an arm and a leg to do.
Yeah.
Jim, yeah, I know the sign up page says unlimited standard. It is gold. That is again a limitation on our technology. It's annoying. I unfortunately can't really do anything about it right now. And then Thomas asks if the organization data gets deleted if you unsubscribe for a month or two and resume again. Absolutely not. We never delete your data. So we can go back to some of our first customers who were with us for 6 months and bailed, and and they're still there. The only time I will remove your data is if you commit fraud against us, and then I'm going to take all your stuff down. I mean, that's pretty explanatory. Um, Chris, that's off of our website. Part of that needs to be updated because like Boston Globe and Miami Herald don't take press releases anymore. You still have the option to go from gold to premium, so you can upgrade to premium. It costs $90 instead of $150 to do that, because you're already paying as part of your gold package. You're already paying for a lot of those anyway, so you're not going to double dip there. So Yahoo is still available on the gold package. It's just still an upgrade, to premium from gold. Gold includes, MSN when it comes back, bar chart, Benzinga, Globe and Mail, that sort of thing. Cool.
I think that's it.
All right, guys. Thanks for your attention. I really appreciate it. Those of you who are already customers, thank you so much. And Bradley, as always, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, man, it
This is
was
the
good.
the
And
highlight of my year.
I definitely you and I need to schedule a catch-up call because I want to
We
find out
probably
more about
should.
this AI engine that you've got. So yeah, definitely. We'll catch up. But appreciate you as always, Jeremy. Everybody go reach out to Jeremy if you need anything specifically. Otherwise, can ask me questions about press releases and stuff on Hump Day Hangouts as well, so I can help you to get the best use out of your Press Advantage account. Appreciate
Yep.
all of you. Thanks you,
Thanks,
Jeremy. We'll
guys.
see you guys next time.